So here we are with Grendizer U, Grendizer's first anime project in nearly 5 decades. Episode 1 just dropped, so let's do a recap and discussion, pretty much like I did with The Witch from Mercury last year. If you're unfamiliar with Grendizer U, I have a video going over some things to know before watching it, so give that a look if you'd like some more context for the series. And with that out of the way, let's get into the episode. Episode 1, Two Stars Meet in the Desert. It starts off very different than the original anime. Here we see Duke heading towards Earth and Grendizer with the Spazer. In the original, it begins with Duke having already integrated into Earth life and meeting Koji for the first time. Genzo picks up on Grendizer's descent towards Earth, asking if it's a meteor. Duke ends up crash landing in a desert region, exiting Grendizer and passing out from exhaustion. Sayaka is already nearby in a truck and saves Duke. After doing so, however, Sayaka gets attacked by, get this, Dr. Hell's minions. Which is interesting, since he was defeated in Great Mazinger, so I can't wait to see how much Grendizer U implements Mazinger's lore, since the original was pretty sparse. Anyway, we get a chase sequence where she gets shot at by 2 other trucks. Then, a doubless M2 comes up from out of the sand, another Mazinger mecha. Sayaka changes the truck into a flyer and tries to bypass it, but ends up getting caught in some tractor beams. She's unsure of what to do at this point, but guess who shows up? That's right, fellas, we're getting Koji and Mazinger Z only 2.5 minutes into the first episode. He destroys the 2 trucks with photon beams and Scrander cutters the doubless M2. After dealing with Hell's guys, he grabs the truck and asks if Sayaka's okay, then asks about Duke, wondering why he's in the desert like that. They then head for what I'm assuming is Genzo's lab. We then get the opening. After the opening, we pretty much time skip to where Duke is living on Earth and working on the ranch. He rides Goro, one of the horses, around for a bit before getting flagged down by Koji, who, in another difference from the original anime, he already knows and isn't meeting for the first time. We learn here that it's been 3 months since he landed on Earth, and has amnesia. He's also going by Daisuke now. He thanks Koji for all he's done and apologizes for the trouble. Then they go on a shopping date, I guess, with Sayaka third-wheeling. She's talking on the phone with Yumi Genosuke, one of the scientists at the lab, about Koji, and then Grendizer and the Spazer. They were only able to snap a pretty bad-looking picture of it as it was crash landing. Koji and Duke then start leaving Sayaka behind, which is pretty funny. They haven't really acknowledged her this whole time. We then cut to a motorbike race with Koji winning first place. Duke shows up and Koji encourages him to try it. Duke knows nothing about motorbiking, but Koji assures him he'll be fine if he was able to tame Goro. Duke decides to try it out, and a small detail I love in this shot is the Energer in the announcement screen. Energer is the original concept for Mazinger Z, so that's a good touch. As the race starts, Duke is killing it, jumping to 4th place rather quickly. He runs into a wreck, however, and has a flashback sequence to when he was on Planet Fleed, fencing with a red-haired woman. He continues to win the race, and wonders what that memory he saw was. After the race, Sayaka and Koji compliment his racing. He also has a realization that Duke might be his real name. Koji then asks Duke to work for him, and in a funny bit, Duke thought they didn't work like normal people and took them for aristocrats. Shortly after, an alarm goes off and Koji gets in his pilder. He tells Sayaka to get Duke to safety. Despite this, Duke ends up grabbing a motorbike and follows Koji. We then see a classic scene of Mazinger Z coming up from the pool opening. He Scrander crosses and heads towards the enemy. Duke sees Mazinger and calls it a weapon, comparing it to Grendizer. He then gets another flashback to Grendizer seemingly going berserk, Duke pleading for it to stop. This freaks Duke out and he passes out. We then get more of when he was on Planet Fleed with his fiancée, Rubina. He tells her that he had a weird dream about being on a different planet and forgetting about her, which turns nightmarish when she says it's because he's the one that killed her. He then wakes up to Sayaka tending to him. He asks her about Mazinger Z, and she tells him about it. He thanks them for all they've done, and heads out to meet Koji. Because Duke cares about them, he decides to tell Koji who he is and where he's from, finally remembering at least a little bit about his past. He also plans to dispose of Grendizer so Vega doesn't get to it. He says he'll drop it onto the sun along with himself, but Koji denies the plan. We then cut back to the Photon Labs, alarms blaring. Looks like Vega's troops have finally arrived. Duke tries to talk Koji down from going out in Mazinger, saying it's useless, but Koji isn't going to give up like that. He arrives on the scene and starts tearing things up in Mazinger Z. Photonic beams and breast fires galore. It's a beautiful sight. A little bit into the fight though, it isn't looking too good for Koji. He does end up catching it off guard and giving it a point-blank breast fire, which was awesome. Despite destroying one, however, he now has to contend with 2 more. Just as things are getting bad, Duke calls Grendizer and saves him, and in a show of total badassery, he space thunders both enemies at once, easily destroying them. In awe, Koji says this has to be the robot that Duke was talking about, and with that, the episode ends. I gotta be honest here, I absolutely loved this. A great first episode for a series that hasn't had any anime love for nearly 5 decades. Fukuda is killing it direction-wise, and Okuchi is on his writing aid game. And something I didn't expect was how much more implemented it was into Mazinger's lore, with Dr. Hell's minion showing up, the callback to Energer, and Mazinger Z being much more prevalent. It's all great. Absolutely killer return for the old Grendizer. Something else I have to bring up is Grendizer's new design. I really like Junichi Akutsu's work here. Grendizer looks extremely sharp. For those that don't know, he's the guy that did the Gundam Astrays. He also did Mazinger Zest and the Mazinger Destroying Hell manga, so this is his second main design in a Mazinger-related work. He needs to do a Getter now so he has a hand in the Mecha Holy Trinity. I also have to mention something hilarious I noticed when watching the first episode from the original to this one. Koji isn't a total goof-off, and Duke treats him with far more respect in this. For some reason, Duke was a total asshole to Koji in the original, and I like the shift here. Can't wait to see more. Let me know what you guys thought of the episode in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this recap and discussion, and to stay up to date on my future uploads. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.